They called me at 2 a.m. screaming that my brother was bleeding out in the ICU and demanded I wire $28,000 immediately or his blood would be on my hands. So I laughed, told them to call their precious golden child Skylar instead. Then I hung up, turned off my phone, and went back to sleep. The voicemail from the Harris County Sheriff's Office the next morning revealed what my parents conveniently forgot to mention. My brother wasn't dying in a hospital bed. He was sitting in a jail cell, arrested for assault, fraud, and forgery. I'm Logan Hayes. I'm 32. And for 8 years, I was my family's personal ATM. $127,000 drained from my account, while they told me I was nothing without them. This is the story of how I finally hung up for good. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It started with a graduation nobody bothered to photograph. In the Hayes family portrait from Christmas 2016, I'm standing at the edge of the frame. My brother Tanner is dead center, his arm draped across our father's shoulders like they're football buddies rather than father and son. My sister Skylar leans into our mother, both of them beaming. When the photo was printed for the living room wall, no one noticed that half my face had been cropped off. No one ever noticed me at all. My father, Richard Hayes, spent 30 years as a branch manager at First Continental Bank before retiring in 2019. He built his identity on that title: the firm handshake, the corner office, the respect of men in suits. My mother, Donna, was the perfect bank manager's wife. Volunteer committees, church socials, a house that smelled like fresh-baked cookies whenever anyone important visited. Then there was Tanner, 28 years old now, but forever frozen in our parents' eyes as the golden child, the heir apparent, the son who would carry the Hayes name into greatness. He could fail out of trade school, crash 2 cars, bounce from job to job, and still somehow remain the family's brightest hope. Skylar, at 25, had perfected the art of strategic invisibility. She stayed just agreeable enough to receive the benefits of being the baby girl without ever being asked to sacrifice anything. And me? I was the oldest, the one who graduated with a 3.8 GPA in computer science from the University of Houston, the one who landed a real job with a real salary. But I was also the daughter. Girls leave when they get married, my father told me once. Only sons stay to take care of their parents. I graduated in May 2014. The ceremony started at 10 a.m. My family arrived 40 minutes late because Tanner had a football game that apparently couldn't wait. No one took a photo of me receiving my diploma. The first time I sent money home was in October 2016. I'd been at Vertex Financial Technologies for 8 months, earning $72,000 a year, more than anyone else in my family had ever made. Tanner called on a Sunday night, his voice thick with excitement. He'd met a guy who knew a guy who had a foolproof business idea. Cryptocurrency trading, he said, or maybe it was sports memorabilia. The details kept shifting. All he needed was $8,000 to get in on the ground floor. I said no. My mother called back within the hour, crying. Your brother has dreams, Logan. Real dreams. And you have the ability to help him achieve them. What kind of sister turns her back on family? Mom, I just started my job. I'm still paying off student loans. You think we didn't sacrifice for you? Who paid for your SAT prep? Who drove you to college visits? We invested in your future, and now you won't invest in your brother's? I wired the money the next morning. The business never materialized. When I asked Tanner about it 3 months later, he laughed like I'd told a joke he didn't quite get. Oh, that? It didn't work out. My buddy flaked. These things happen, sis. What happened to the money? He shrugged. Life's expensive. I found out later, much later, that his business opportunity was actually a betting account with an offshore sportsbook. The $8,000 I sent for his entrepreneurial dreams funded exactly 6 weeks of losses on NFL games. That was my first lesson, though I didn't recognize it at the time. I also didn't recognize that I'd just established a pattern that would cost me everything. Or rather, it would cost me $127,340 over the next 8 years. I kept records. I kept every single bank statement. Maybe some part of me always knew I'd need them. Let me break it down for you, because the numbers matter. From September 2016 to January 2024, I made 47 separate transfers to members of my family. 47 times I opened my banking app, typed in an amount, and watched my money disappear into accounts that were not my own. Tanner's education was the largest single category, $42,000 across 5 years. First, it was the trade school he dropped out of after 3 months. Then the community college where he lasted 2 semesters. Then the business courses he took online, which I later discovered were gambling tutorials on YouTube that happened to cost $300 a month for premium membership. Skylar's Honda Civic came next. $23,000 for a 2019 model that she drove for 18 months before trading in for a lease my parents co-signed. She never offered to reimburse me. It never occurred to her to try. The mortgage payments were the most insidious. 23 separate transfers over 8 years, each one preceded by the same phone call. "We're just short this month, Logan. Just this once. You know your father's retirement isn't what we expected." That category alone totaled $34,500. The rest fell under what my family called emergencies: roof repairs, medical bills, car troubles, Tanner's various opportunities. $27,840 that vanished into the void of their lives without a single receipt, a single thank you note, a single acknowledgement that I had sacrificed anything at all. Meanwhile, I lived in a studio apartment with 650 square feet of space. I hadn't taken a vacation in 4 years. My car was a 2015 Honda that I'd bought used with 80,000 miles on it. And Tanner? He drove a BMW 3 Series that he claimed was a gift from a friend. I believed him. I believed everything they told me. That was about to change. January 15th, 2024. A date I will remember for the rest of my life. Marcus Coleman called me into his office at 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. As CFO of Vertex Financial Technologies, he wasn't someone who usually summoned mid-level engineers for afternoon chats. My heart hammered the entire walk from my desk to his corner suite. "Close the door," he said. "Have a seat." Marcus was 52, silver-haired, with the kind of calm authority that made you believe everything would be fine as long as he was in the room. He'd been at Vertex since before I started, and over the past 6 years, he'd become something I didn't quite have a word for. Not a father figure. I had enough complicated feelings about fathers. More like a witness. Someone who actually saw my work. "Logan, I'll cut straight to it." He leaned back in his chair. "We're promoting you to senior engineering manager. You'll lead the Meridian project. Salary bumps to $210,000, plus an equity package that vests over 4 years. I forgot how to breathe. The deadline is April 1st, 52 days. The project's worth $2.3 million to this company, and I need someone I trust completely to deliver it." He looked at me, really looked at me. "That's you. You've earned this." Earned this. No one in my family had ever used that word in connection with anything I'd done. "I won't let you down," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Marcus nodded. "I know you won't. One more thing." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Whatever else is happening in your life right now, whatever distractions exist, I need you fully present for the next 2 months. Can you commit to that?" I thought about the 18 phone calls I'd received from my mother in the past month. "Yes," I said, "I can commit to that." I meant it. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a spreadsheet open on my laptop and did the math I'd been avoiding for years. At my current rate of supporting my family, roughly $15,000 annually, I would never own a home, never build meaningful retirement savings, never have the financial stability to start my own family if that's what I wanted. The numbers didn't lie. They never do. But it wasn't just the money. I thought about September 2023 when I nearly missed a critical deployment deadline because my parents had called crying for 3 consecutive nights. Tanner needed $12,000 for what they described as a once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity. I sent it. The opportunity evaporated, the stress didn't. Dr. Amanda Price, my therapist, I'd started seeing her in early 2022, had said something that stuck with me. You can't pour from an empty cup, Logan, and your family has poked a hole in the bottom of yours. I'd laughed it off at the time. Now the words felt like prophecy. I opened a new savings account that night, a separate bank. No family members knew about it. I named it Exit Strategy in my mental ledger and deposited the first $1,000. Then I made a decision. Starting now, I would reduce my family contributions gradually, 10% less each month. By summer, I'd be down to half. By the end of the year, maybe nothing. It was a good plan, logical, measured, the kind of plan an engineer would make. I didn't know that my family wouldn't give me until summer. I didn't know that in exactly 24 days, my phone would ring at 2:07 in the morning, and everything I thought I understood about my life would shatter completely. But that night, I slept well. It was the last good sleep I'd have for a while. February 7th, 2024, a Wednesday. I remember every detail of that evening because it felt, at the time, like a turning point. Not the violent kind that was coming, just a quiet personal victory that seemed to matter. At 6:23 p.m., the test environment for Project Meridian's Phase 2 went green. Every module synchronized. Every data pipeline flowed cleanly. After 3 weeks of 18-hour days, the system worked exactly as designed. I sent Marcus an email at 10:32 p.m. Phase 2 complete, all systems validated, on track for April deadline. His reply came 4 minutes later. Outstanding work. Get some rest. You've earned it. Earned it. There was that word again. I closed my laptop, took a long shower, made chamomile tea, read 30 pages of a novel I'd been neglecting for months. The apartment was quiet. My phone was quiet. That was the strange part, I realized. No calls from my parents that day. No texts from Skylar asking for a tiny favor. No voicemails from my mother about whatever crisis Tanner had manufactured this week. The silence should have been peaceful. Instead, it felt like the moment before a thunderstorm, when the air gets heavy and the birds stop singing. At 11:17 p.m., I plugged in my phone and set it to silent mode. Not off, just muted. A habit I developed to protect my sleep from late-night family drama. At 11:24 p.m., I turned off the lights. At 11:31 p.m., I fell asleep. Somewhere across Houston, in a card room I'd never heard of, my brother Tanner was about to make a decision that would change everything. But I didn't know that yet. All I knew was the silence, and the silence was about to scream. The phone lit up at 2:07 a.m. I saw the screen through half-closed eyes, home, in white letters against the glow, and felt my stomach drop before I was fully awake. Middle-of-the-night calls from my family were never good news. I answered. My mother's voice exploded through the speaker, shrill and ragged. "Logan! Thank God! Tanner's in the ICU!" I sat up, heart pounding. What? What happened? He got beaten up. At some casino or card room or something, I don't know the details. He's hurt bad, Logan. Really bad. Okay. Okay. Which hospital? Memorial Hermann. But that's not... Logan, listen to me. They want $28,000, some kind of deposit or fee or... I don't understand it, but they won't treat him properly unless we pay. He's just lying there suffering and they won't help him. $28,000. The number hit me like cold water. Mom, that doesn't sound right. Hospitals don't... My father's voice cut in. He must have grabbed the phone. Don't argue with us right now. Your brother is dying. You have money. Wire it immediately. Dad, I need to understand what's going on. What casino? Why was Tanner... Are you interrogating your own family? Your brother is bleeding in a hospital bed and you're asking questions like some kind of lawyer? I'm asking because $28,000 is not a small amount, and this doesn't make. Transfer the money. His voice went flat, cold, the tone he used when he expected absolute obedience. Transfer it now, or his blood is on your hands, Logan. You'll be responsible for whatever happens to him. A silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Well, my father demanded, are you our daughter or not? I looked at the clock. 2:14 a.m. And for the first time in 8 years, I didn't immediately say yes. Something had shifted. Maybe it was the promotion. Maybe it was the months of therapy. Maybe it was the simple, cold arithmetic of $127,000 disappearing into a void that never said thank you. I kept my voice level. Dad, which Memorial Herman location? What? There are multiple campuses. Which one is Tanner at? A pause. I heard my mother whisper something in the background, but couldn't make out the words. The main one, my father said finally. Downtown. Okay. And you said he needs a deposit for treatment. But Memorial Herman doesn't require upfront deposits for emergency care. I know that for a fact. So what's really going on? The silence that followed lasted 5 full seconds. I counted them. My mother's voice returned, higher now, almost frantic. Logan, this isn't the time for, we don't know all the details. We just know he needs money and he needs it now. Why was Tanner at a casino at 2 in the morning? He wasn't at a casino, he was just out with friends. You said card room. That's a casino, Mom. Don't twist my words. Your brother is suffering and you're playing word games. I'm asking basic questions. Who beat him up? Why? What actually happened? My father again, his voice tight with barely contained fury. You're treating us like criminals, like we're lying to you, after everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me? The words came out before I could stop them. Like taking my money for 8 years? Like never once saying thank you? Dead silence. I'd never spoken to them like that. Not once in 32 years. The old Logan would have apologized immediately, would have backpedaled, would have sent the money and hated herself in the morning. But the old Logan had sent $127,000 into a black hole. The new Logan wanted answers. My father's response was ice. I see. So this is who you really are. After we raised you. After we fed you and clothed you and put a roof over your head for 18 years. You think you made yourself? You think that fancy salary of yours came from nowhere? It came from my degree, Dad. The one I earned. The one you showed up 40 minutes late to watch me receive. Don't you dare throw that in my face. We had other responsibilities, family responsibilities that you apparently never learned to appreciate. My mother was crying now, loud, theatrical sobs designed to pierce through any remaining resistance. How can you do this to us, Logan? How can you abandon your brother when he's hurt and scared and alone? I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm asking what the money is actually for. For his life. For keeping him alive. Hospitals don't let people die for lack of a deposit. That's not how it works. My father cut through the crying with surgical precision. You're going to regret this, Logan. You're going to look back on this moment and realize you destroyed this family. I destroyed it? By asking questions? By refusing to help? By treating your blood relatives like strangers with their hands out? You know what your grandmother would say if she could see you now? The grandmother card. Classic. She'd probably ask why you need $28,000 at 2 in the morning for a hospital that doesn't require deposits. That's it. His voice went quiet, the kind of quiet that used to terrify me as a child. You transfer that money in the next hour, or I swear to God, you will never be welcome in this family again. You will be dead to us. Do you understand? Dead. I looked at the clock. 2:23 a.m. And I understood something I should have understood years ago. This was never love. This was extortion. I took a breath, then another. For 8 years, I had been the reliable one. The one who answered every call, the one who wired money within hours of every request, the one who sacrificed vacations and savings and peace of mind because family was supposed to mean something. But family meant nothing to people who only called when they needed cash. Mom, Dad. My voice was steady, steadier than I'd expected. I don't have $28,000 to send, and even if I did, I wouldn't send it. My mother's crying stopped abruptly. What did you say? I said no. Silence. 8 years, I continued. 47 transactions, $127,340. Not one dime repaid, not one real thank you, just more requests, more emergencies, more guilt trips in the middle of the night. You're keeping a ledger on your own family? Someone had to. You certainly weren't. My father's voice returned, colder than I'd ever heard it. So that's your answer. Your brother could die and you'd rather sit on your money like a... Tanner is 28 years old. If he's in trouble, he can handle it himself. Or you can. Or Skylar can. She's your golden daughter, isn't she? Ask her for the money. Skylar doesn't have... Neither do I. Not anymore, not for this. You ungrateful... Good night, Dad. I pulled the phone away from my ear. I could hear him still shouting, the words blurring into something unintelligible, my mother wailing in the background. I pressed the red button. The screen went dark. Then I did something I'd never done before. I powered the phone completely off. The black screen stared back at me like a mirror. I lay down, closed my eyes. And for the first time in 8 years, I slept without guilt. Whatever happened next, I had finally chosen myself. I woke at 7:28 a.m. to silence. For a long moment, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the guilt to crash over me like a wave, waiting for the panic, waiting for the voice in my head that always said, "What if they're right? What if you're the monster they say you are?" The voice was quiet. I got up, made coffee. Then finally, I turned my phone back on. The screen filled with notifications like a dam breaking. 14 missed calls from home, 7 text messages from Skylar. I didn't read them, but I saw enough. Wow, Logan. You are literally insane. Mom is devastated. 3 missed calls from unknown number, and 1 voicemail from a number I didn't recognize at all. I played the voicemail first. Something about it felt different. Ms. Hayes, this is Deputy Williams from the Harris County Sheriff's Office. We're calling regarding an incident last night at the Lone Star Card Room involving your brother, Tanner Hayes. Mr. Hayes was taken into custody following an altercation on the premises. We attempted to reach you as an emergency contact. Please return this call at your earliest convenience. I listened to it again, then a third time. Taken into custody. Not hospitalized. Not in the ICU fighting for his life. Taken into custody. My parents had called me at 2 a.m., sobbing about hospital bills and deposits. They'd told me Tanner was beaten and bleeding and might die without immediate intervention. They'd demanded $28,000. And the entire time, my brother wasn't a victim in a hospital bed. He was in handcuffs. I set my coffee down, opened my laptop, and typed Lone Star Card Room Incident, February 7th, into the search bar. What I found made everything I thought I knew look like a children's story. The Houston Chronicle had published the story at 6:14 a.m. Man arrested at local card room for assault. Fraud with fake IDs. I read the article 3 times, my coffee growing cold beside my laptop. According to the report, Tanner Marcus Hayes, age 28, of Houston, Texas, had been arrested at the Lone Star Card Room at approximately 1:45 a.m. on February 8, 2024. He was charged with assault in the second degree after allegedly attacking a dealer who had asked him to settle his outstanding tab. But that wasn't all. During the booking process, investigators discovered that Tanner had been using forged identification documents to open multiple player accounts at several area card rooms. The scheme, which investigators believed had been ongoing for at least 6 months, had allowed him to accumulate lines of credit across multiple establishments. His total outstanding debts were estimated at $45,000. The article noted that Tanner had sustained minor injuries during the altercation. Apparently, several patrons and security personnel had subdued him after he threw the first punch, and had been transported to Memorial Hermann for a medical evaluation before being transferred to the Harris County Jail, Memorial Hermann. That's how my parents knew which hospital to mention. $28,000. That was the bail amount, I realize now. Not a hospital deposit, not treatment fees, bail, for assault and fraud and forgery charges that could put my brother in prison. My parents had woken me at 2 a.m. to post bail for their son, the felon, and they'd wrapped it in a lie about hospital bills because they knew I would never pay to get Tanner out of jail. They knew because they knew me, and they'd tried to manipulate me anyway. I saved the article to my family records folder. Evidence. Then I made more coffee, because the morning was just getting started. The email arrived at 8:47 a.m. I saw the sender, Donna Hayes 1965, and felt my stomach tighten, but I opened it anyway. Something told me I needed to see what she would say when she thought I was sleeping. Subject: You will regret this. The body of the email was 6 paragraphs long. I'll spare you the full version. The key parts went like this. Logan, I cannot believe you hung up on your father and me during the worst night of our lives. Your brother is in jail because you refused to help. If you had just sent the money like a normal daughter, he would be home with us right now instead of sitting in a cell like a criminal. And then, 3 paragraphs later, you owe this family. Without us, you'd be nothing. Do you think you got that job on your own? Do you think you earned that degree without our support? Who paid for your college applications and SAT prep back in high school? That was $2,300 we never got back. You've been selfish your entire life, and last night proved it. And finally, but there's still time to make this right. Send the $28,000 now and we'll forget this ever happened. Don't make me tell the entire family what kind of daughter you really are. I read that last line twice. You owe this family. Without us, you'd be nothing. There it was, in writing, with a timestamp. I took a screenshot, then another from a different angle, showing the email headers clearly. Then I saved the entire email as a PDF and added it to the folder where I kept 8 years of bank statements. The folder was labeled Family Records. Today, it became evidence. I didn't reply to my mother. What was there to say? Before I continue, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where your family demanded something unreasonable and you had to choose between them and yourself? Tell me about it in the comments. And if this story is making you feel less alone right now, please hit that like button and subscribe. It helps me share more stories like this one. Now, let me tell you what happened next, because it got worse before it got better. By February 10th, my phone had become a weapon in my family's hands. They didn't just call me, they mobilized. My Aunt Carol texted first. Logan, honey, I heard you refused to help when Tanner was in the hospital. That doesn't sound like you. Are you okay? Uncle Frank followed an hour later. Your mother is heartbroken. She says you abandoned your brother when he needed you most. I hope you can work this out. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions about my character, but the real assault came on Facebook. My mother posted at 2:34 p.m. on February 10th. I saw it because 3 different relatives tagged me in the comments asking what was going on. Praying for my son Tanner, who is going through a difficult time. Family should always stand together. Grateful for those who understand what loyalty means. Some people forget what family really is. 47 reactions, 23 sympathetic comments, a Greek chorus of "Stay strong, Donna," and "Family is everything," and some people need to remember where they came from. Skylar called that afternoon. Chi, you need to fix this. Everyone is talking about you. Did you read the article, Skylar, about what Tanner actually did? That's not... Look, he made a mistake, okay? Everyone makes mistakes. But you're making it worse by refusing to help. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. Tanner committed felonies. Oh my God, you're so dramatic. This is exactly why no one in this family likes you. She hung up before I could respond. I sat with my phone in my hand, reading the Facebook comments, watching my reputation dissolve in real time. My family had rewritten the story. In their version, I was the villain, and they were just getting started. February 12th changed everything. I was in the middle of a Project Meridian stand-up meeting when my phone vibrated. I glanced at the screen, Donna Hayes, and silenced it without answering. The meeting was important. The deadline was in 48 days. But when I checked my voicemail during the lunch break, my blood went cold. Logan, this is your mother. I want you to know that I called your company this morning. I told them exactly what kind of person you are. Someone who abandons family, who cares more about money than blood. I told them you're cold and heartless, and that they should know who they're really working with. Maybe when you lose your precious job, you'll understand what you've done to us. I listened to the message 3 times. She called my company. She called my company. At 2:47 p.m., my fears were confirmed. An email from Sarah Mitchell, HR Director. Ms. Hayes, we received a call earlier today from an individual claiming to be your mother. She made some serious allegations regarding your character and personal conduct. As a matter of policy, we need to schedule a brief meeting to discuss the situation. Please confirm your availability for tomorrow at 10 a.m. I stared at the screen. Project Meridian, $210,000. The promotion I'd worked 6 years to earn. My mother was trying to destroy it all because I said no to paying my brother's bail. That night, I didn't sleep. I compiled my bank statements. I organized my evidence. I prepared a timeline of every dollar I'd sent and every request I'd received. If HR wanted to know what kind of person I was, I would show them. I would show them everything. The HR conference room felt smaller than I remembered. Sarah Mitchell sat at one end of the table. Marcus Coleman sat at the other. I took the chair in the middle, my laptop bag heavy with evidence I hoped I wouldn't need. Ms. Hayes, Sarah began, her tone carefully neutral. I want to be clear that we're not here to judge your personal life. But the call we received made some concerning allegations, and we need to understand the situation. I nodded. What did my mother tell you? That you stole money from your family, that you abandoned a dying sibling, that you're, and I'm quoting here, a sociopath who only cares about herself. I almost laughed. Almost. May I show you something? I opened my laptop and pulled up the folder I'd prepared. Bank statements, the email from my mother, the police report from Tanner's arrest. Marcus leaned forward as I walked them through the numbers. $127,000, 47 transfers, 8 years of silence where gratitude should have been. And this, I said, pulling up the article, is what my brother was actually arrested for the night my parents called. Assault, fraud, forgery. They wanted me to post his bail, and they disguised it as hospital fees because they knew I'd never pay to get him out of jail. Sarah's expression shifted from neutral to something closer to sympathy. Marcus's jaw tightened. May I see that email? He asked. I showed him. He read it twice. When he looked up, his eyes were hard, but not at me. Logan, your family's personal conduct is not your professional responsibility. Sarah, I recommend we close this inquiry. He turned to me. Ms. Hayes's performance is exemplary. Her personal life is her own. Sarah nodded slowly. Agreed. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in 2 days. But Marcus wasn't finished. Marcus walked me out of the conference room personally. Logan, he said quietly, once we were in the hallway, I want you to know something. In 30 years of business, I've seen a lot of family situations. But that email, he shook his head. Without us, you'd be nothing. That's not family. That's abuse. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I just nodded. If they contact us again, we'll handle it. Focus on Meridian. You've got 46 days. I threw myself into work after that. For a week, my family receded to the edges of my consciousness. Still there, still sending angry messages I didn't read, but manageable, distant. Then the letter arrived. February 20th, 2024. It came to my apartment in a crisp white envelope with a return address I didn't recognize. Stevens and Associates, Attorneys at Law. The first paragraph made my hands shake. Our clients, Richard and Donna Hayes, have retained this firm to pursue legal action against you for willful abandonment of family causing emotional and financial distress. We are seeking damages in the amount of $150,000, more than I'd given them in 8 years of trying to be a good daughter. The hearing was set for March 15th, 2024, at the Harris County Civil Courthouse, Courtroom 4B. I sat on my couch, reading the letter again and again, waiting for the panic to set in. For the old Logan to surface, the one who would call her mother and beg forgiveness just to make it stop. But the old Logan had paid $127,000 for nothing. The new Logan called a lawyer instead. Dr. Price was right. You can't pour from an empty cup. And I was done being empty. Rebecca Thornton came highly recommended. She specialized in family law, specifically cases involving financial abuse between relatives. Her office in the Galleria area was small but immaculate, with diplomas from Baylor Law on the wall and a no-nonsense air that I found immediately reassuring. "Let me understand this correctly," she said, flipping through the documents I'd provided. "Your parents are suing you for $150,000 because you declined to pay $28,000 in bail for your brother, who was arrested for assault and fraud." "Yes." "And over the past 8 years, you voluntarily transferred $127,000 to various family members, none of which was ever repaid." "Correct." Rebecca set down the folder and looked at me. "Logan, I've practiced family law for 18 years. I've seen a lot of manipulation. But this," she gestured at the pile of bank statements, "this is extraordinary, in the worst possible way. Can they win?" In Texas, there's no legal obligation for adult children to financially support their parents or siblings. None. They could argue emotional distress. But with your evidence, she tapped the email printout. You owe this family. Without us, you'd be nothing. This undermines any claim that they were innocent victims. What do we need for the hearing? She outlined our strategy. Certified copies of all 47 bank transfers, the email with timestamps intact, the police report and news article about Tanner's arrest, and one more element that hadn't occurred to me. A character witness, Rebecca said. Someone outside the family who can testify to your reputation and, ideally, to how your family treated you. I thought of Eleanor Mitchell, 72 years old, 15 years as our neighbor, the woman who brought me lemonade when I cried on the porch. I know exactly who to ask. March 15th, 2024, 8:47 a.m. The Harris County Civil Courthouse rose against a gray Houston sky. I'd worn my best suit, charcoal gray, tailored, professional. Rebecca walked beside me in navy blue, her briefcase heavy with evidence. "Remember," she said as we climbed the courthouse steps, "stay calm. Let me do the talking. When you do speak, facts only. No emotion, no accusations, just truth." Courtroom 4B was smaller than I'd imagined. Wooden benches, fluorescent lights, an American flag behind the judge's bench, the kind of unremarkable room where lives got rearranged. We arrived 15 minutes early. The room was already filling. My parents sat at the plaintiff's table with their attorney, Gerald Stevens, a heavy-set man in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. My father wore his church suit, the one he reserved for funerals and occasions requiring respectability. My mother clutched a handkerchief, her eyes already red. Behind them, the support section. Skylar sat in the first row, arms crossed, studiously not looking at me. Aunt Carol and Uncle Frank, 6 other relatives I barely recognized. A wall of disapproving faces. I spotted one friendly figure in the back, Eleanor Mitchell, her white hair pinned neatly, her posture ramrod straight despite her 72 years. She caught my eye and nodded once. I nodded back. A man with a press badge slipped into a seat near the door. I recognized him from the Houston Chronicle byline on Tanner's arrest article. The room held perhaps 45 people when the bailiff called out, "All rise. The Honorable Patricia Lawson presiding." The judge entered, gray-haired, sharp-eyed, the kind of face that suggested she'd seen every possible human failure and wasn't impressed by any of them. "Be seated," she said. "Let's begin." Gerald Stevens rose with the practiced ease of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. "Your Honor, my clients, Richard and Donna Hayes, are heartbroken parents who have been abandoned by their eldest daughter in their darkest hour." He paced slowly before the bench, his voice pitched for maximum sympathy. On the night of February 7th, their son Tanner was hospitalized after a violent assault. Terrified for his life, they called their daughter Logan, a successful software engineer earning well over $150,000 per year, and begged for her help. He paused for effect. She refused. Not only refused, but laughed at them and hung up the phone. She left her brother to suffer, her parents to despair, and her entire family to wonder how someone they raised could become so cold. My father was called to the witness stand. He placed his hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth with the same practiced sincerity he'd used to convince me, year after year, that his love was conditional. "Mr. Hayes," Stevens asked, "can you describe your daughter's relationship with your family?" My father sighed heavily. "Logan was always difficult. She moved out at 18 and barely kept in touch. She'd visit occasionally, but she always seemed more interested in her career than in us." And on the night of February 7th, we called her in desperation. Tanner was hurt, bleeding. We needed help. He looked at me across the courtroom, his eyes hard. She laughed, told us to ask Skylar for money. Then she hung up. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Aunt Carol shook her head in theatrical disappointment. My mother took the stand next, crying into her handkerchief. "I sacrificed everything for my children. Everything. And this is how she repays us." I sat perfectly still. Because it was almost our turn. Rebecca rose slowly. No drama, no theatrics. Just quiet, devastating precision. "Your Honor, opposing counsel has painted a picture of a heartless daughter abandoning her suffering family. I'd like to present a different picture, one supported by facts." She lifted a thick folder from our table. Exhibit A, certified bank records from Westfield Financial showing 47 separate transfers from my client's personal account to various Hayes family members between September 2016 and January 2024. The folder landed on the judge's bench with a satisfying weight. Total amount transferred, $127,340. I have documentation of each transaction, including dates, amounts, and notations describing the purpose. Tanner tuition, mortgage help, Skylar Carr. Not $1 was ever repaid. Judge Lawson raised an eyebrow and began leafing through the pages. Exhibit B. Rebecca produced a printed email. A message sent by Donna Hayes to my client on February 8th at 8:47 a.m., the morning after the incident in question. She read aloud, "You owe this family. Without us, you'd be nothing." The courtroom went very quiet. Exhibit C. The final document. A police report and arrest record for Tanner Hayes, case number 2024 HC03847. On the night of February 7th, Mr. Hayes was not hospitalized as a victim. He was arrested for assault in the second degree, fraud, and use of forged identification documents. Rebecca looked at my father, who had gone pale. The plaintiffs called my client at 2 a.m., crying about hospital bills and medical emergencies. But there was no medical emergency. Their son was in police custody. The $28,000 they demanded was bail money. They lied to their daughter to extract funds under false pretenses. The murmur in the gallery turned into something louder. Judge Lawson raised her gavel. Order. But the damage was done. The truth was on the table. Eleanor Mitchell walked to the witness stand with the careful dignity of someone who had spent 50 years teaching elementary school. She wore a pale blue cardigan and sensible shoes, and when she took the oath, her voice was clear and unwavering. Mrs. Mitchell, Rebecca began, how long have you known the Hayes family? 15 years. I've lived next door to Richard and Donna since 2009. And in that time, how would you characterize their treatment of their daughter Logan? Eleanor's gaze swept across the courtroom, settling briefly on my parents before returning to Rebecca. I would characterize it as deeply unfair. Gerald Stevens stirred. Objection. Characterization. Mrs. Mitchell, Judge Lawson said, please provide specific observations. Eleanor nodded. I can do that. In the summer of 2018, I was in my garden when I heard shouting from the Hayes driveway. Richard was yelling at Logan. She was home visiting from college, I believe. Do you remember what he said? I remember exactly. He said, you think you're better than us because you have a degree? You're nothing without this family. She paused. Logan was crying on the porch afterward. I brought her lemonade. The exact words from my mother's email. The exact same phrase used 6 years earlier. Did you witness other incidents? Several. Logan would come to visit, and within hours I'd hear raised voices, always about money, always about what she owed them. Eleanor shook her head. That girl worked 2 jobs in high school to save for college. I never saw her ask her parents for a thing, but I saw them ask plenty from her. Gerald Stevens declined to cross-examine. What was there to say? A woman who barely knew me had seen the truth more clearly than my own blood relatives. Some families are built on love. Mine was built on debt. And today, the balance was finally coming due. We're almost at the moment everything changed. But before I continue, if there was ever someone outside your family who saw your worth when your own relatives couldn't, I want to hear that story. Drop it in the comments. And if you're watching this and haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Hit that button so you don't miss how this ends. Because what happened next in that courtroom? Even I didn't see it coming. We were in a brief recess when the bailiff approached Judge Lawson with a folded note. I watched her read it, watched her expression shift from neutral to something I couldn't quite identify. She leaned over to speak quietly with her clerk, then straightened. Court is back in session, she announced. I've just received information relevant to this case that I must disclose to all parties. The room fell silent. This morning, in Criminal Court 7B of the same building, Tanner Hayes was convicted on charges of assault in the second degree, fraud, and forgery. Sentencing has been issued. 18 months in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. The reaction was immediate. My mother let out a wail that echoed off the courtroom walls. My father's face went rigid, his jaw working soundlessly. Skylar buried her face in her hands, but I felt nothing. No triumph, no vindication, just a strange, hollow clarity. Gerald Stevens looked like someone had switched his script mid-performance. Your Honor, we weren't aware. Counsel, the timing is what it is. Judge Lawson's voice was flat. This conviction significantly impacts the claims before me. The plaintiffs allege that their daughter's refusal to provide funds caused their son to suffer. In fact, it appears their son was already facing criminal accountability for his own choices. She turned to Rebecca. Does defense wish to add anything? Rebecca stood. Only this, Your Honor. My client was called at 2 a.m. and told her brother was dying in a hospital. She was threatened and guilted. But the truth is, he had been arrested for felonies of his own making. She refused to enable criminal behavior. That's not abandonment. That's integrity. Judge Lawson nodded once. I'm prepared to rule. Having reviewed all evidence and testimony, Judge Lawson began, I find the following. She removed her reading glasses and looked directly at my parents. There is no legal obligation in the state of Texas for an adult child to provide financial support to parents or siblings. None. The plaintiff's claim rests entirely on a moral argument that family members should help each other, but moral obligations are not enforceable in this court. My father's mouth opened, but Gerald Stevens placed a hand on his arm. Furthermore, the judge continued, the evidence presented by the defense is overwhelming. The defendant, Ms. Hayes, has provided documentation of $127,340 in voluntary financial transfers to her family over 8 years. Not $1 was repaid. Not one acknowledgement was given. She held up my mother's email. This communication from the plaintiff, Donna Hayes, explicitly states, and I quote, "You owe this family. Without us, you'd be nothing." This is not a request for assistance. This is coercion. It suggests a pattern of entitlement and emotional manipulation that undermines any claim of good faith. Judge Lawson set down the paper. The case is dismissed with prejudice. The plaintiffs are ordered to pay court costs and legal fees totaling $12,340. The gavel fell. I sat perfectly still as the sound echoed through the room. My mother sobbed openly. My father stood up abruptly, knocking his chair backward, and stormed toward the exit without looking at me. Schuyler followed, head down. Eleanor Mitchell made her way to where I sat. She took my hand and squeezed it once. "You did good, sweetheart," she said quietly. "You did real good." I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed. For the first time in 8 years, I could finally breathe. I found them on the courthouse steps. My father stood rigid, staring at the street. My mother leaned against a pillar, mascara streaked down her cheeks. They hadn't expected me to follow. They hadn't expected me at all. "Logan." My father's voice was ice. I stopped 10 feet away, close enough to be heard, far enough to leave. "You must be proud of yourself," he said, still not looking at me. "You destroyed this family. In front of everyone. You happy now?" "I didn't destroy anything, Dad. I just stopped pretending." He turned then, and for a moment I saw something in his eyes that might have been grief. Or maybe it was just wounded pride. With him, I could never tell the difference. "You'll regret this. When you're old and alone, when you have no one." "I've been alone my whole life." The words came out steady, quiet. "I just didn't realize it until now." My mother stepped forward, her voice thick with tears. "How can you say that? We raised you. We loved you. You loved what I could give you. And when I stopped giving, you sued me." I paused. "That's not love, Mom. I don't know what it is, but it isn't love." She recoiled as if I'd struck her. My father straightened to his full height. "From this day forward, you are not my daughter. You are not welcome in my home. You are dead to me." I looked at him, really looked at him, for what I knew would be the last time. "Okay." One word. Then I turned and walked down the courthouse steps. I didn't look back. Behind me, I heard my mother cry out, calling my name, but her voice faded with each step I took, and I kept walking. My phone buzzed at 5:17 p.m. I was sitting in my car in the courthouse parking garage, engine off, staring at nothing. The day felt unreal, like something that had happened to someone else while I watched from a distance. The text was from Marcus Coleman. "Heard the case was dismissed. Proud of you, Logan. Also, Project Meridian Phase 3 just got approved by the board. You're officially Senior Engineering Manager as of Monday. Congratulations, you've earned this." I read the message 3 times. Senior Engineering Manager. $210,000 a year. The promotion I'd worked 6 years to achieve. The life I'd almost sacrificed on the altar of my family's expectations. For a long moment, I just sat there, phone in my hand, trying to reconcile the weight of the morning with the lightness of this news. Then I drove home. My apartment, my tiny 650 square foot apartment that I'd stayed in for years because every extra dollar went to someone else's dreams, looked different somehow. Smaller. But also, finally, Mine. I made tea. I sat on my couch. I called Dr. Price. The case was dismissed, I told her. They have to pay court costs. Tanner got 18 months in prison, and I got promoted. How do you feel? The question hung in the air. I don't know, I admitted. Relieved, I think. Maybe a little sad. And this sounds strange, but mostly just quiet. Like something that was screaming in my head for 8 years finally stopped. That's not strange at all, Logan. That's what peace sounds like when you've been at war. I smiled for the first time all day. Yeah, I said. I guess it is. Outside my window, the sun was setting over Houston. And somewhere in a cell across town, my brother was learning what consequences felt like. By April 2024, Tanner had been transferred to the WIN unit in Huntsville. I didn't visit. I didn't send money to his commissary account. I didn't write letters or accept collect calls from the prison phone system. What I did was listen. Through the grapevine of relatives who still thought I should know, through Aunt Carol's carefully neutral updates, through articles that occasionally popped up when I searched his name, I pieced together the full picture of who my brother had really been. The gambling debts were worse than reported. Beyond the $45,000 he owed the card room, there were personal loans totaling another $20,000, money borrowed from friends who turned out to be people you really didn't want as creditors. The BMW wasn't a gift. It was a lease he'd obtained using inflated income statements and forged pay stubs. The same skills he'd used to open fraudulent credit lines at half a dozen card rooms across the Houston area. Somewhere in the intake process, a prison psychologist had flagged him for gambling addiction. He was recommended for their counseling program. Whether he participated, I didn't know. It wasn't my business anymore. My parents visited every weekend. Rain or shine, they made the 100-mile round trip to Huntsville to sit across from their golden child in a prison visiting room. Skylar went twice. Then she stopped. I wrote one line in my journal that month. Tanner is finally where he needs to be. A place where consequences exist, where charm doesn't pay the bills, where the word no actually means something. I hope he learns. I hope he changes. But that's not my responsibility. It never was. I meant every word. Some people need to hit rock bottom before they look up. My brother had been falling for years. I just finally stopped trying to catch him. The foreclosure notice arrived at my parents' house in late June 2024. I learned about it from Aunt Carol during one of her semi-regular just-checking-in calls. She tried to frame it neutrally, but I could hear the judgment underneath. They're behind on the mortgage, Logan. 4 months now. The bank is moving forward with proceedings. 4 months. That meant they'd stopped paying shortly after the lawsuit failed. I did the math in my head. For 8 years I'd covered their just this once shortfalls. $1,500 here, $1,700 there. 23 transfers totaling $34,000. Without that safety net, reality had finally caught up. I'm not going to ask you to help, Aunt Carol said. I know what they did. I know it's complicated. It's not complicated at all. She was quiet for a moment. Your father's working part-time at a hardware store. Home Depot, I think. Donna's selling crafts online. They're trying, Logan. I'm sure they are. Don't you feel anything? That's the house you grew up in. I thought about the house, the bedroom where I'd studied for SATs while Tanner got to watch TV, the living room where the cropped photographs still hung on the wall, the driveway where my father had told me I was nothing without them. The house was sold in July, I said finally, according to county records. You looked it up? I like to know where things stand. Silence. Logan, don't you think? I think they spent 8 years treating me like an ATM, then sued me when the machine stopped working. I think they made their choices, and I think those choices have consequences. I paused. I'm sorry, Aunt Carol, but I'm not going to feel guilty for being the consequence. She didn't call again for 3 months. The Houston Chronicle ran a feature story in August. The headline was, Casino Fraud Case Unveils Family Financial Dynamics. Sister sued for setting boundaries. I hadn't agreed to be interviewed. The reporter had pieced the story together from court records, Tanner's criminal case, and public documents. My name wasn't mentioned, but anyone who knew the family could connect the dots. The article went viral on local social media. The comments section turned into a battleground. This is exactly why I don't talk to my relatives anymore. Good for her. Parents who treat their kids like ATMs deserve to be cut off. I've been in this situation. Gave my family 150K over 10 years. Wish I'd had her courage. Family should help family appeared too, usually followed by family shouldn't sue family for setting boundaries. Within a week, I received 3 emails through LinkedIn from strangers who had somehow figured out my identity. The first 2 were supportive. The third one changed something in me. It was from a woman named Rachel, 45 years old, from Dallas. I don't know if you're the woman in that article, but if you are, I want to thank you. I've given my family over $200,000 in the past 15 years. My brother is on wife number 4. My parents are on car number 8. And I've been telling myself it's my duty, that family is family, that I'm the lucky one who can help. Your story made me realize it's not too late to stop. I called my mom last night and said no for the first time in my life. I'm still shaking, but I feel like I can finally breathe. So thank you for going first, for showing me it was possible. I read Rachel's email 3 times, then I printed it and put it in a frame on my desk. Sometimes, your story isn't just yours. Skylar's message came in August, 3 weeks after the Chronicle article. I almost deleted it without reading. Her previous texts, "Wow, Logan, you are literally insane, Mom is devastated," had established a pattern I didn't expect to break. But something made me open it anyway. Chi, I know I don't deserve to talk to you. I'm not asking for money. I haven't asked Mom and Dad for money either, not since everything. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I stared at the screen, waiting for the catch. I saw what they did to you. I saw it my whole life, actually. But I was too scared to say anything. I was afraid that if I spoke up, I'd be next. So I stayed quiet and let you take everything. That was wrong. I was a coward. A pause in the timestamp. She'd taken almost 5 minutes before the next message. I'm not expecting you to forgive me or want to talk. I just needed you to know that I know. And I'm sorry. If you ever change your mind, I'll be here. I sat with the messages for 2 days before responding. Skylar, thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. I'm not ready to have a relationship with you right now. Maybe someday, but not now. I hope you find your own path. Her response came in seconds. I understand. I really do. I saved the conversation, didn't delete her number, didn't block her. But I didn't write back either. Dr. Price said it best. You left the door ajar without walking through it yourself. That's healthy. That's growth. For the first time in my life, I was holding the door, and it would stay exactly where I wanted it to stay. February 8th, 2025. Exactly 1 year since my phone rang at 2:07 a.m., and my mother's voice shattered the silence with lies about hospital bills and dying brothers. I woke up that morning in my new townhouse, 1,200 square feet of space that belonged entirely to me. I'd paid $60,000 for the down payment, 6 years of sacrifice, redirected. Finally, something to show for it. The morning light came through the bedroom windows as I made coffee in my own kitchen. No shared walls, no landlord, no studio apartment where I'd felt like a guest in my own life. At work, I managed a team of 12 engineers. Project Meridian had launched on time and under budget. The client had already signed a 3-year extension worth $4.2 million. Marcus had used the word exemplary in my annual review. $210,000 a year, equity vesting over 4 years. benefits I actually used because I had time and energy to take care of myself. On weekends, I did yoga, brunched with friends I'd reconnected with after years of being too drained to socialize, read books for pleasure, cooked meals that took longer than 15 minutes. And there was Derek, an architect I'd met through Marcus at a company event. 34 years old, steady, kind in ways that didn't come with conditions attached. We'd been dating for 4 months, taking it slow, building something that felt real. My phone didn't ring in the middle of the night anymore. No more emails with the subject line urgent. No more guilt trips dressed up as love. I'd spent 8 years learning what family wasn't. Now I was learning what it could be. And for the first time since I could remember, the future felt like something to look forward to. Aunt Carol called in late January 2025 with what she described as updates you probably should know. I listened without interrupting. Tanner had been released after 14 months, early for good behavior. He was at a halfway house in southeast Houston, required to participate in a gambling addiction recovery program as a condition of his parole. Aunt Carol said he seemed different, quieter. Whether that meant genuine change or just a temporary strategy, I couldn't tell. And honestly, I'd stopped trying to predict what Tanner would do. My parents had rented an apartment in a complex off Highway 6, 700 square feet. A far cry from the four-bedroom house where they'd raised 3 children and reminded me weekly that I owed them everything. My father worked part-time at Home Depot. He was 62 now, with bad knees and worse pride. My mother sold handmade crafts on Etsy, the kind of side hustle she used to mock as something poor people do. They didn't contact me. Maybe my father's declaration that I was dead to him still held. Maybe they were too proud. Maybe after everything, they had nothing left to say. Skylar was living with her boyfriend and Katie. She'd enrolled in community college, working toward an associate's degree in something practical. We hadn't spoken since her apology, but I'd noticed she'd stopped posting about family is everything on social media. "Do you feel anything?" Aunt Carol asked again, echoing her question from months before. I considered it, really considered it. "I feel finished," I said finally. "Not angry, not sad, just done. They're still my biological family. But the family I choose, my friends, my colleagues, my therapist, Derek, that's where I belong now." Aunt Carol was quiet for a long moment. "I think I understand," she said. I hoped she did. "If you've made it this far, I want to say something directly to you. I know some of you are living the life I used to live. You're the one everyone calls when there's a crisis. You're the one who gives and gives and gives while being told you're selfish for having boundaries. You're the one who lies awake at night wondering if maybe they're right. Maybe you are the problem. Maybe you do owe them everything. You don't. Let me say that again. You don't owe anyone your peace, not even people who share your blood. I spent $127,000 and 8 years of my life learning that lesson. I hope you don't have to pay that price. Setting boundaries is not cruelty. It's not abandonment. It's not selfishness dressed in psychology talk. Setting boundaries is survival. It's saying, I matter too. It's recognizing that you can love someone and still refuse to let them drain you dry. It's understanding that no is a complete sentence. The night my parents called at 2:07 a.m., demanding $28,000 and threatening to disown me if I didn't comply, I made a choice. I chose myself. Not because I didn't love them, in some complicated, grief-filled way, I still do, but because I finally understood that their version of love had always come with a price tag. I hung up that phone, I turned it off, and I slept. It was the first step on a journey I'm still walking, but I'm walking it free. So if you're where I was, if you're tired and broke and wondering when it ends, know this. It ends when you decide it ends. It ends when you hang up the phone. Thank you for listening to my story. Now go write your own. That's my story. If it touched you, if it helped you feel less alone, leave a comment and tell me about it. I read every single one. If you know someone trapped in a family situation like mine, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing you're not the only one is the first step toward freedom. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Check the description for more videos like this one. And remember, you matter too.